All right, good evening, everyone. We'd like to welcome you to the Fruita City Council meeting. The time is now 7 p.m. We're going to go ahead and call our meeting to order. Deb, would you please call roll?
Counselor Bremen,
Yes.
Counselor Purser,
Here.
Counselor Williams,
Yes.
Counselor Cry,
Here.
Counselor Miller, Counselor Hansi.
Here.
All right, we're going to move into our moment of silence and pledge of allegiance. If you'd please stand with us. We'd like to allow a moment of silence to allow all faiths and beliefs the opportunity for a silent prayer. Thank you. If you please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we've got an agenda before us. Are there any changes to that agenda?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, there are two changes to the agenda since it was first posted to the website last Friday. The first is in addition to the consent agenda, item J, minutes from the January 24th workshop meeting. And secondly, an additional executive session under council reports and actions just prior to the city attorney informal review.
All right. Do we have a motion to approve the amended agenda?
So moved.
Second. All right, we got a first and a second. Any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none, would you please poll council?
Counselor Bremen,
Yes.
Counselor Purser,
Yes.
Counselor Williams,
Yes.
Counselor Cry.
Aye.
Counselor Miller,
Yes.
Counselor Hansi.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
All right, with that, we're going to move into our proclamations and presentations. So our first presentation tonight is for the Fruita Students and Teachers of the Month for March 2023 for the Fruita Middle School. And I'm going to come out front and I've asked Counselor Miller to help me with this. All right, this is one of the great things we get to do in our community to recognize our students and teachers here in the city of Fruita. And so I'm going to ask when I call your name, if you come up and then you stay up here, because I know there'll be people that want to get photos of this opportunity. So we have a certificate for you, 1-day pass at the community center, and then we've got an I Heart Fruita button for you. So we've got our first student is from 6th grade, Cooper Hayward, and it is being recognized by the Fruita City Council for outstanding academic achievement and excellence. Keep up the great work. All right, and then our next one is from 7th grade, Hannah Wooters. She's being recognized by the Fruita City Council for outstanding academic achievement and excellence. So come on up. All right, and then we've got special education teacher, Michelle Hobbs is being recognized for her work in our community. We've got a counselor at Fruita Middle School, Jolie Hendricks, in recognition of your dedication, passion, and hard work. You don't want to forget the important part, the I Heart Fruita button. The next one is for the secretary at the Fruita Middle School, Taya West. Did I say that right? All right. Don't forget your button too. We know it's important. We want to share the love here in Fruita. And then secretary at Fruita Middle School, Katie Bozio. All right. Yep, don't forget your button. All right, let's give them a big round of applause. And then don't be shy if your parents or what you want to come up and get a photo. You don't have to sit in your seat. You can come up closer if you want. All right, let's give this group another round of applause. All right, great to see a great group of students here. We always say this, you're welcome to stay for the whole meeting, but you don't have to. So it's up to you guys if you want to stay. With that, we're going to move into our next presentation. And so we've got a presentation from Dr. Corey Klein from Family Health West Community Update. And so welcome, Corey, and looking forward to hearing what you guys have going on.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council, for giving me an opportunity to speak. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Dr. Corey Klein. I'm the president and CEO of Family Health West, and I've been the CEO for about 4 years. And I want to thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak. I talked to City Manager Bennett quite often, and he told me I had 10 minutes, and he obviously doesn't know me, but I will do my best. I actually presented this to the medical staff at noon today, and it took me 14 minutes. So I'm going to talk faster than I did.
You should be worried about CR because she'll cut the mic off. And
I thought I would give you a little bit of about Family Health West in 2022. The Lower Valley Hospital Association board. This was a 40-minute presentation, about 55 slides. So I've cut it down to, I think, 6. So I always like to mention our mission. We changed our mission statement this year. We did that because our staff asked for a change in our mission statement. And I like to focus on the end of it, that we strive to provide warm, compassionate service to make every patient's day a little bit better. We recognize that sometimes you can't heal people, but you can always make their day better. And we aim to do both if we can. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about us in 2022. We're very committed to our patients and our community. The first thing you have to know is you'll see slides with a lot of pictures on them. One of the commitments we have made to market ourselves is that we actually use our own employees in all of our advertising. So anytime you see a Family Health West commercial, it is not stock footage, including the billboard on the interstate is our own employees. But on March 20th, we changed our name. That was probably one of the biggest things we did this year. So marketing, of course, helped with this slide, so it looks different than all the rest of them. But that's our own employee. The rose actually comes from William Paber, the founder of Fruita, when he talked about rose embowed cottages and the flourishing of Fruita. That's why together we flourish. That's why we're the rose. And Family Health West was incorporated into our name to help identify us better. And the one other thing that we did is there was some confusion about when patients would get a hospital bill versus a clinic bill. Now, every time you see something that has the word hospital in it, you get a hospital bill. If it doesn't have the word hospital in it, it doesn't have a hospital bill. And we also made the names very, very easy. So for example, we're now Family Health West Primary Care, because that's how people search and find information these days. The citizens of Fruita have asked for primary care. And when I left my private practice at Western Valley Family Practice, there were 5 of us. And the Lower Valley Hospital Association Governing Board and our surveys of the community asked for more primary care. I'm proud to announce tonight we just signed, starting in October, our 23rd primary care physician. And I intend to keep hiring primary care physicians till people quit complaining they can't get an appointment or get somebody on the phone over primary care. But we had 3,555 potential primary care leads in 2022. That's hits on our website looking for primary care doctors. Obviously, our community is very, very important to us. We have a foundation that raises funds. I'll let you read the list. I'm not going to read it off, but I do want to point out that our foundation is a little bit different. All of the proceeds from our fundraisers, and we have 2 main ones. One, we have a golf tournament here in Fruita, and we also have a gala in August. It actually goes to buy things that make patients' lives better. So this is not just superfluous stuff for the hospital. For example, blanket warmers and patient beds are very important pieces of equipment for patients, and that's what we spend our money on. We were able to raise the money you see here, plus we have grant writers. We raised another $153,000 in grants, and that all goes to Family Health West projects as well. Our community is very, very important to us. We do a lot of outreach to our community. We try to have our name on most of the important things in the community if we can. And we have a relationship with a lot of different things. As you can see, we participate in a lot of events. We were able to raise the most money for Cups for a Cure, which was breast cancer awareness. And our own Flavors Grill, our catering company, won that again. And second place was that other hospital down the road a little ways. Another thing I wanted to point out is that I'm doing community events. I do a quarterly CEO coffee with the CEO, and I might have stole that idea from someone. My next one is actually tomorrow at Best Slope. We're going to be talking about what do we mean when we say social determinants of health and why do we care? That's part of the hospital transformation program. And I'm also presenting this slideshow, so our community will get to see it again if they didn't get to see it tonight. And we also meet monthly with the city to make sure that we're good citizens, corporate citizens. We meet with St. Mary's to ensure the transitions of care into our hospital from them are adequate and safe. And we also meet with our first responders to make sure that we're also making sure that the community citizens, as they transition from out in the community into our hospital, are getting the care they need. And so I thought I would give you, the city council, a little bit of demographics. So we are Fruita's largest employer. We have 587 employees. And I also thought it might be interesting to know how many of those people actually live in Fruita. And so when we talk about our mission, we always say Fruita Loma Mac, as it's like one thing, but we also recognize that there are a lot of our employees and citizens that live in the Redlands area that use our school system and use our grocery store. But it's really hard to tease that data out because of the zip code, how it's spread out. So this does not include anyone that's in those zip codes, but 40% of our employees actually live in Fruita Loma Mac, which I think is really amazing, but it's actually down from about 50% when I started. And if you survey our employees, the reason why, it's actually our lowest paid employees because they're having a harder time living in Fruita Loma Mac. And so the interesting thing is the lower the wage scale of our employees, the more likely they are to drive or commute farther to work. The male to female breakdown, as you can see, females largely dominate our workforce in healthcare. That's probably larger than some other hospitals, but pretty normal in the industry. The average age of our workers is 43. Average tenure is 4.3 years. In healthcare right now, it's 3.4 years. So we're actually exceeding that for turnover. And our average wage is $38.05 an hour. And if you look at Fruita Loma Mac, it's $33.01. You might ask, why is it like $5 an hour cheaper to live in Fruita and get a job here in Fruita? And that's largely because a lot of our physicians live in the Redlands area. And so because their wages are higher, they skew that number. So because again, that's the average, not the median. And then of course, I always like to talk about economic impact. Our payroll last year was $38.88 million. And so we do a lot of payroll, and that is direct money that goes back into our community. And of that 13.43 million, those dollars went directly to people who live in Fruita Loma Mac zip code. So that's over $1 million of economic impact. The Grand Junction Economic Partnerships also talked about for every employee at our hospital, there's about one more employee that's employed to support the hospital in surrounding supportive things in the community. And so we double the economic impact when you take into account our partners. We have also done a lot of leadership development. We felt that it is very important to develop leaders. We found that most of our managers and department heads started at lower level jobs and worked their way up. And so we think it's very important to teach them how to be managers. And so we do a lot of leadership development. You can see that we do something almost every other month through some corporate partners. Two items of note this year. We did get a new chief financial officer. Her name is Teresa Tabor. She taught accounting at a community college. She's worked in a large health system, and she's worked in many critical access hospitals. She joins us from Vermont. And we're very pleased to have her. And I don't like to talk about myself, but I've been told I have to include this. I did win the Inspiring CEO Award at a national conference in 2022 in Orlando, Florida. Our hospital, I just pulled out a few things. We continue to add physicians. And we're adding Dr. Benvenuti just started, and we're actually adding another PA. So we're continuing to try to expand rheumatology to meet the needs of our community. We've had some emergency room doctors and again, primary care We did have an orthopedic hand surgeon that retired. We replaced him with a PA, and she now works with the other hand surgeon. So we were able to keep all of our hand surgery here local. We did expand primary care. They outgrew their space on Plum Street, and so we moved them to 401 Kokopelli Unit 1. And that's been really good. If you haven't seen that building, it's really quite beautiful. I've actually been attending clinic in there. And the amazing thing for me is instead of stepping on everyone's toes, I actually can't tell how many doctors are working in there because it's so spread out. But with our 23rd provider, that space is actually almost reaching capacity. And that's great. We did start a new recycling program, a food waste initiative this year. Some interesting facts about us. Our average daily census is 17.83, and we only have 25 beds. That's the maximum allowed as a critical access hospital. We served 32,000 meals. Sometimes I don't think people realize how much dietary occurs in the hospital. That includes patients, visitors of the patients, and our staff. We processed over 95,000 lab specimens, 17,000 radiologic studies, 34,000 medication orders. But the coolest thing that I want to share with you tonight is we have a Parkinson's program called Rock Steady Boxing, and it uses boxing maneuvers to promote balance and stability. It's so well liked. We actually have 10 classes a week for Rock Steady Boxing. I think every Parkinson's patient in Mesa County comes to Fruita for a class at least once a week. And even during the COVID pandemic, they informed us they would rather die of COVID than stop their Rock Steady Boxing classes. And they were serious because they love it so much. And I'll also mention their spouses love it too, because it's a built-in support system, because while they're out there, they can commiserate with other spouses that are dealing with spouses with Parkinson's disease. We are committed to quality care. We are very, very committed to quality care. In fact, national average for value-based payments, which are payments that pay primary care for quality instead of quantity. The average primary care practice is about 3%. In 2022, our primary care was paid 40% of their revenue through value-based initiatives. And we have negotiated value-based initiatives with almost every major insurance company. But our hospital quality is very, very good. As you can see, we had 0 surgical site infections in 2022. I always point out the hand hygiene compliance rate is only 87%. And you might think, ew, that's really nasty, because that means 13% of the employees didn't wash their hands before touching a patient. But the hard part there is that's visually washing their hands. And so if a nurse goes in the room, closes the door, and washes their hands, we can't tell when we actually do the surveying. And national average, that's actually quite good. And that's reflected in our infection rates. There is a program called the Hospital Transformation Program. It's an optional program from the state of Colorado, except for they reduce your funding if you don't do it. It's not my version of optional, but we met all of the measures, and we were only one of about 1/3 of the hospitals that met the measures on the first pass in the first year. We also, our lab and ED turnaround times, our ED turnaround times are around 5 to 8 minutes for a CBC and about 12 minutes for a BMP. It's very, very fast to get data for our patients, and all of our specimen rejection rates are near 0. They do a very, very good job so that you do not have to be poked twice for a lab error. We have a service excellence initiative. We had 104 process improvement projects completed in 2022. And HCAPS, if you don't know what that is how the government measures our quality. We improved in 7 of the 12 domains in 2022. And a couple more of those domains, it's hard to improve in because our scores are so high. I thought I'd give you a little bit. We are committed to financial sustainability, but like everyone in Fruita, we faced the same headwinds in 2022. So we actually increased our revenue. We had total revenue of $77 million, but our total expenses were $78.3 million. And so if you look at that our expenses were up $6.3 million, which sounds like a lot, but that's about 8%. If you look at inflation overall, we pretty much met the inflation parameters that were nationally. So what does a hospital do? Well, we employ people. In fact, 2/3 of our expenses are salaries. And then we give people things. So we feed them. So that's food. We put things on them like Band-Aids. We put things in them like implants or medications. All of those things went up in price. Salaries were up 5.3%. Benefits were up 8.5%. Medical supplies were up 6.8%. General supplies were 12.3%. Rent was up 19.8%. Utilities were up 13.2%. Insurance was up 4.8%. Food was up nearly 20% in 2022. As you can see, we did end up losing money. We lost about $400,000 in 2022, and that is largely due to inflation. I would say that probably every person experienced that, especially if you paid your electric bill or your heat bill in January, because ours was $100,000 over budget. But it was inflation. We actually were below most of the other hospitals in Colorado in salary inflation and things like that. We really tried to hold our costs down, but everything was rising at the same time. And of course, insurance companies did not inflate their how much they gave us for care. It's a different talk too, and I'm happy to share it with the council sometime, but we are a critical access hospital. Our largest payer is Medicare. We get paid cost plus 1% minus sequestration. That means that for a Medicare patient to see our hospital, we never make 1 penny. In fact, we lose 2 pennies on the dollar of cost. The good news is we only lose 2 pennies on the dollar of cost. And so that has a large economic impact on us, both good and bad, but I'm happy to talk more about what makes us different compared to what we call a PPS hospital or prospective payment system hospital like St. Mary's or Community Hospital. I give that talk actually to our new employees. They find it very fascinating, and I'm happy to share that sometime, but that's probably a little longer conversation. And so lastly, the other thing that the city of Fruita and its citizens have been asking us time and time again at the farmers market is they wanted access to extended hours and urgent care. We've always had extended hours, but it's been in our Redlands clinic, and it's called the Redlands After Hours. That still exists. But we are opening an urgent care at the request of the community. That will be opening on April 10th. It was supposed to open at the beginning of the year, but contracting with insurance companies took a little longer than we expected. So we're currently staffing that up. But that will be at 401 Cocopelli unit number 3, which is next door to our primary care. That will be not by appointment, by walk-in. So what we'll have available is we'll have by appointment after hours care in our Redlands clinic, and in the urgent care, we'll have walk-in. So depending on what the patient's need is, if you want a specified time, we have a way to accommodate you. If you want to walk in and wait, we have a way to accommodate you. For our own employees, we're also encouraging them to get their care in Fruita through our own health benefit plan. So they will actually only have a $5, their copay will only be $5 to $10 more than they would to go to their primary care. So we're hoping to keep that care in Fruita. And with that, I would take any question you have.
All right, thanks, Dr. Klein. Does anybody have any questions? You went through a lot of stuff pretty quick. I'm
Pretty quick.
impressed.
I was trying to stay in my parameters.
I think you did a good job. If there's no questions, that's
All right.
I do have a question. Do you guys own the Oaks there off of Otley, right?
We do on the property at 805 West Otley. That is
It
correct.
was
It was an assisted living.
assisted living. What's your plans with that?
That's a good question. Over the last 3 or 4 months, we had been exploring options to see if we could work a deal to expand daycare in Fruita. At the end of September, that deal did expire. And so we are back to exploring options with that property, but we don't have any current plan. If you're interested.
all right. Well, thank you, Dr. Klein. We appreciate you coming in and filling us in on.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
All right, with that, we're going to move into our public participation. So this section is set aside for the city council to listen to comments by the public regarding items that do not otherwise appear on the agenda. Generally, the city council will not discuss the issue and will not take an official action. So is there anybody in the audience that'd like to speak on something not on the agenda? All right, we ask that you state your name and address for the record and then limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
My name is Travis Schroeder. I'm the pastor at Bethel Assembly of God in Grand Junction. I live here in Fruita, 226 Narrow Leaf Drive. I'm a public speaker and I can't speak in front of the public. So anyway, I'm here to pray for the city council and the meeting. So if you would care to join with me in prayer, I'd appreciate it. Dear Lord, we just thank you so much for this day. Lord, I thank you for the opportunity to be able to lift your name up in prayer, Lord, and to lift up our city. Lord, you have just given us a beautiful and great city and community to live in. And we just thank you so much for your many blessings that you have provided for us. Lord, I ask you that you would continue to bless our community, our businesses, our schools, our teachers, and all of the residents of Fruita. I pray that you would help our city to flourish and to grow, Lord. I just pray for your guidance and your direction over our city council to make good and godly decisions. I also pray, Lord, that your word, your wisdom, and your truth would be at the forefront of everything that we do. And Lord, I just give you all the glory, and I ask this in the name of Jesus. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience that'd like to speak on something that's not on the agenda? All right, hearing none. Is there anybody online?
No comments online, Mr. Mayor.
All right, with that, we're going to close public participation and move into our consent agenda. So these are items where all conditions or requirements have been agreed to or met prior to the time they come before council for final action. They'll all be approved by a single motion of the council. So we're going to open this up to public comment. If there's anybody in the audience that'd like to speak on an item on consent agenda, now would be your opportunity. Yes, they're up in this front box up here or. Yeah, and just so everybody knows, in the back of the room, when you first come in, there's a little basket that has one and there's some up here in the front too. So. All right, I'm not hearing any. Is there anybody online that would like to speak?
No comments online, Mr. Mayor.
All right, with that, I'm going to close public comment and bring it back to council. Are there any questions or comments on the consent agenda?
No.
All right, hearing none, do we have a motion?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
All right, we have a first and a second. Any other comments? All right, hearing none. Deb, would you please poll council?
Counselor Purser,
Yes.
Counselor Williams, Counselor Cry.
Aye.
Counselor Miller,
Yes.
Counselor Hansi, Counselor Bremen.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
All right. With that, we're going to move into our public hearings. We've got one quasi judicial hearing tonight, an ordinance 2023-01. It's a second reading. An ordinance amending the official zoning map of the city of Fruita by zoning approximately 9.1 acres of property located at parcel number 2697-162-21-001 to community residential zone. And we've got Henry Hemphill here, our city planner, to present on this.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Good to be with you tonight. Been a little while. So yes, tonight, we are presenting second reading of ordinance 2023-01. It's a rezone application to rezone approximately 9.1 acres of property from planning and development to community residential. So the property owners currently are James and John Fish and Victoria Reagan. It's located at the southeast corner of 18 and K Road. This application type is a rezone, and the representative is Cart Planning, who's here with us. Legal notice has all been accomplished in accordance with the land use code. You can see that section there. The postcards, property, and the newspaper were all done well within the minimum 15-day requirement that the code requires. And then for ordinances, it's required that we have a first reading. So we introduce the ordinance and propose it to council to set a hearing date, which is tonight. Also, those legal notices invited the public to not only the planning commission public hearing, but also the second reading, which is tonight's meeting for the city council. And the first reading happened on February 7th. The legal notice locations for the property, we have some blue signs that we put out. We try to put them on every street frontage or close to. You can see there in the red stars there, that shows the location of the public notice that's placed on the property to let anyone know passing by that there's a pending land development application on there. It states what the application is and when to attend and how to contact the city if there's any questions. There's also a buffer there. Everything highlighted in blue, those properties received legal notice postcards, minus any of the city parks, obviously the one in Vista Valley. But we do send one to ourselves to ensure that those legal notices are getting sent out and they come back and they go to the place where they're supposed to. Plus we check them for quality. When they come back, can you read them? because we have had instances in the past where the copy machine and the way the post office processes those legal notices, they get smudged and so they're difficult to read. But that's why we send them to ourselves to ensure that legal notices happen. So we know that people have been invited to this meeting. A little bit of the property history here. Vista Valley was built out in a number of different phases or filings. We've got one section of Vista Valley that was first done that's actually community residential. It's identical to kind of the phase 2 or filing 2 of the planning and development stage. And I'll run through that to give you a visual. You guys have all seen the aerial photographs of Vista Valley, but it overlays which came first and how they went in order. But essentially tonight we're talking about lot 1 of the Fish Minor subdivision that happened, that separated off 9.1 acres that we're talking about tonight, and then 2.74 acres, which is already built out and zoned planning and development for residential purposes. This part of the planning and development is really set aside for commercial uses. In the 2001 comprehensive plan that the city adopted, it recommended a kind of a neighborhood commercial node in this area. And then the 2010 comprehensive plan also continued with that aspect. But in 2001, when this property was annexed, and then in 2002, when it was actually zoned, that's where kind of the context comprehensive plan came in, and it recommended that this portion of the property be kind of set aside for those commercial uses. Speed up to 2023, and obviously we're here and nothing really has happened on that property other than the residential uses nearby. So here's a scanned version of the comp plan from 2001 that I referred to, and that red star there is the location of the subject property, and it's known as the Northeast Mixed Use Design District, which in short says it sets aside a small scale commercial area for basically for all the growth that was happening north of Otley, is to try to capture all of that commercial use. But obviously that didn't really pan out the way that the comprehensive plan recommended from not only 2001, but actually 2010 as well. So here's an aerial photograph of pretty much all of Vista Valley. And so the first one that pops up is going to be that red. This was built out first. This is Vista Valley filing 1, not planned unit development, but it gets kind of confusing, which is why we're breaking it down. There's the Fish Minor subdivision in black, 9.1 acres, and then 27.7 acres, which was then eventually obviously zoned. When you annex, you need to zone within 90 days. It was typically zoned right at annexation like we typically do. Then this was accomplished. There's 70 lots here. This is Vista Valley Planning and Development filing 1. Now we're finishing out Vista Valley filing 2, which is community residential, and then finishing out the Vista Valley PUD filing 2. That kind of in a nutshell is how this has kind of grown and built out, where now we're here today talking about the 9.1 acres, which in the PUD guide sets aside a number of different commercial land uses. A couple of them, a car wash and a convenience store or a gas station, retail, office space, restaurant types of uses, a bank, a movie theater, police, fire stations, a post office, dry cleaner, a whole plethora of different commercial types of uses to hopefully, I believe the intent was to grab some of those, obviously, like it said in the comp plan, is to snag some of those rooftops and those vehicle trips, is to just go there instead of kind of the downtown or the south side. It's a lot further to drive down there. Nonetheless, it's still a vacant property. It's been for sale for quite some time. And I do believe it's the intention of the property owners to kind of move on from that and present something more in alignment with our community plan now, or our comprehensive plan now, which supports residential uses or a community residential zone, which is why the recommendation is here before you tonight. So as we review the review criteria contained in section 17.09 .070, there's 5 criteria to consider. The primary impetus of those criteria is to present compatibility when proposing a rezone. And so we really take into consideration the comprehensive plan that we have that's really community driven. You have all been able to read and participate in some of those comprehensive plan meetings that we had in 2019 leading up to 2020 adoption. But again, the primary consideration towards zoning is compatibility. And when we really think about that, it's existing land uses compared to supported land use in our comprehensive plan and what that zone district actually builds out at. So community residential would typically be supported nearby residential land uses, either future land uses or current land uses. Obviously, this is kind of an infill project, so there's residential neighborhoods built around it on pretty much all sides except for the northwest corner, which is still kind of open space, and it is still in the county and zoned AFT. But nonetheless, staff has determined that this property and the rezone is compatible with surrounding land uses if it were to be built out in the community residential fashion, which we'll touch on here in just a moment. But here's our community plan or our comprehensive plan. This is also known as our future land use map, which is a guiding document not only for people trying to move into the city, but also developers or property owners with large vacant property or anything that's kind of in the county and now they need some public services like sewer is a main one that the city provides, is looking at this. Hey, how does the city want to grow? Where is it growing, and how does it grow out? So here's the subject property. It's been in the city limits obviously since 2001, like I mentioned before, and a comprehensive plan does support community residential if this were to come up. So before you tonight. So the community residential zone allows 4 to 6 dwelling units per acre by right, with a minimum lot size of 7,000 square feet. What typically comes up when we're having conversations with the public is, what are the setbacks for those? How do those lots get built out? What do they look like when something's built on them? So the front setback for the house is 20 feet. This is from the edge of the sidewalk closest to the house. And then 25 feet for the garage, or 15 feet for the garage if it's got, or for the front of the house if there's alley loaded garages. So you're allowed to push it forward, kind of get more of a neighborhood feel. Side setback is a 16-foot total with a 5-foot minimum. We typically see 8 and 8, which is usually represented in planning clearances, and a rear setback of 15. Under the community residential standards, it's mainly driven towards single-family residential land uses. We have attached and detached dwelling units that are allowed, and oftentimes they're typically detached to give room for, RVs, campers, boats, or whatnot on the lot to satisfy some of those needs that property owners are looking for when they're buying in Fruita. Again, with the density bonus that is allowed in community residential, this is required if someone wants to go above and beyond and request additional density bonuses. So kind of give an expectation or paint that expectation for those in the public that might be wondering is, what could I eventually see there? And the code does allow for property owners or developers to ask for additional density, but there are criteria that must be considered in order for the council to actually grant that in a public hearing like we are tonight. So for density bonuses, there's 4 allowances that a developer could choose. 20% open space, bike and trail connections, alley or shared drive access, or a mix of housing. You couldn't grant 2 density bonuses for one of those. So if they wanted to go for 8 dwelling units per acre, they'd have to pick 2 of those and satisfy it. But if they wanted to pick one, the 20% open space for this particular lot comes to 1.82 acres of open space granted. But that would allow the property owner to decrease from 7,000 square foot minimum lot size to 3,500 square foot minimum, and allows for a little bit different setbacks, but not rear or front. Those are still the same the setbacks differ because the smaller lots allow for a better use of the lot to have attached to it. And bike and trail connections, if they wanted to do that, they'd need to satisfy at least 500 linear feet of new trails. Alley or shared drive access, 80% of the lots would need to have access from an alley or a shared driveway in order to satisfy that, or the mix of housing types. And in order to satisfy that, there's a minimum of 20% of the dwelling units being single-family attached, duplexes or multifamily units, and a way to essentially commit the developer to that, to say, hey, I'm going to do a mix of housing. I understand that it's kind of a need in the city of Fruita. They record a site plan. So when it's built out, those particular properties that are located on a recorded site plan actually get built out the way that they said. So there's some accountability there too. So it's not just something that they would propose to the council and the public to satisfy any worries that they might have, but it's a way to account for what's going to be built out. So just to give some context of what could be built out there, because I know that there's some questions that might be out there, but this is what the code allows. And there's a process for all of these things. So I touched on the Vista Valley PUD a little bit as they got built out, but just to give you an idea, the lot size average for Vista Valley PUD filing one, which is on the south of this proposed lot, is there's a minimum lot in there of 4,145, and the average square foot lot size is 5,950. And then there's the typical setbacks. So very similar to what the community residential standards have. So nothing too wild from what's already built there to what the code does allow. Comments that have been made, no reviewer expressed any concerns. We are the reviewer as the city of Fruita with home rule jurisdiction to, make these recommendations and these decisions with the city council. And no written public comments have been received by staff. Our code does require for rezones that a neighborhood meeting occur before they submit an application. That took place prior to submittal. At the Planning Commission, the Planning Commission recommended approval of 6-0 at their January 10th public hearing. We did receive some oral comments, public comments at that meeting, and those are representative or in the minutes that you received in your packets tonight. As far as next steps, if this were to move through a signed ordinance, that gets recorded. And then if the subdivision were to be proposed there, a pre-application meeting with staff is required. A neighborhood meeting is required for anything over 10 lots. And then a public hearing is required for anything over 10 lots as well. So public transparency is important to staff, and that's built into the code, which is why we have those things in place. So to finish the presentation, Mr. Mayor and members of council, the staff's recommendation is here. Staff does recommend the council adopt this ordinance 2023-01. And the suggested motion is found on page 91 of the council packet. And with that concludes my presentation.
All right. Thank you, Henry. And then we've got Cart Planning here to present for the applicant.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Ty Johnson with Cart Planning. We're the owner's representative for the application before you this evening. And for the record, our address is 734 Main Street in Grand Junction. As usual, staff's done an excellent job in their analysis of our request, especially as it relates to the history of the property, the existing PUD, and the proposed zone and the comprehensive plan and the approval criteria. So I'll just speak a little bit to the motivation behind the rezone request. The owner has had this property on the market for quite some time without any success. They have no intention of developing it. They just want to sell it. This rezone request is to make the property more compatible with surrounding land use and hopefully make it more marketable. So that is the motivation behind the rezone request before you this evening. As Henry mentioned, I did host a neighborhood meeting in early December at the Fruita Recreation Center. We had approximately 25 participants at that meeting. We had largely productive discussion. related to the existing zoning, the proposed zoning, and then just kind of generally about the development process as well that evening. That really summarizes the request, and be happy to answer any questions you may have about the application.
All right, Ty, we're going to open up to public comment, and we'll come back to you with any questions or if any, and you can have a rebuttal if there's any public comment. So with that, we're going to open this up to public comment. So if there's anybody in the audience that'd like to speak on this item, now is your opportunity to do that. All right, I'm hearing none here. Is there anybody online that would like to? All right, we've got one. So if you come up to the microphone and state your name and address for the record, and then we ask you to limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Evening. My name is Leroy Reeder, Reeder. I know Mr. Bremen here. He's my neighbor. I live on 361 Arches Drive. Our property backs up to this parcel, as do several of my neighbors. I'm not so thrilled about the 15-foot setback in the rear, because there goes your privacy. I mean, if they're in a 2-story house, they can look right down into your yard. That's about all I have to say, but I'm not thrilled with this proposal, but I understand the city wants to make money off of it. And also I think he said something about up to 81 units could be on that property. I think that's way too many houses for that property. The 54 or whatever is more reasonable, but I'd like to see even less than that. Thank you.
Thank you, Leroy. Is there anybody else in the audience?
Good evening, council members, Mr. Mayor. My name is Sean Dar. I'm at 424 Hawthorne Street. Just barely fit into all this. I am in favor of the rezone. I would rather have residential than mixed-use commercial. I do understand that there is some concern of having some setbacks. However, you know, you're dealing with the lesser of two evils here. However, I did enjoy the horses. Other than that, I have nothing really further to add. I would encourage you guys to consider the rezone. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak on this item? All right, I'm hearing none here. Is there anybody online?
No comments online.
All right, I'm gonna give you one more opportunity, because once we close public comment, we won't allow that. So is there anybody else in the audience that'd like to speak on this? All right, hearing none, I'm going to close public comment. I'm going to bring it back to Ty if you want to address anything that was brought up in the public comment.
Sure, yeah, thank you. First, let me just talk to density a little bit. So as Henry mentioned, the CR zone allows 4 to 6 dwelling units per acre as a use by right, and then anything above 6, you can go up to 8 with the density bonus. So this property is 9 acres. So that would be 36 to 54 units as a use by right in the CR zone. And then you could go up to potentially 72 units through the density bonus program. However, as you all are very familiar, there's a lot that needs to be demonstrated in compliance with criteria and other regulations in order to do that. Certainly understand the concern about setbacks. And, you know, that would be determined at a later development date. And it's hard to say where those setbacks would end up. Obviously, the minimum is a 15-foot rear, which concern was expressed about. But at this point in time, without any development on the table, it is hard to say functionally where those setbacks would end up at a later date. So with that, I'll conclude.
All right, thank you, Ty. All right, I'm going to bring that back to council. Are there any questions or comments related to this item? Go ahead, Matthew.
One question actually for you, because I'm in that blue notification zone. Am I permitted, is that a conflict or anything to vote on this?
Best practice would be to recuse yourself from voting.
Okay, and I will be recusing myself for that. I do want to kind of address the one comment in terms of the city wants to make. Oh, I'm out.
All right, is there anybody else that has any questions or comments regarding these? Go ahead, Mike.
Perhaps a suggested question. It was mentioned by one of the comments that the city wants to make money off of this. And I don't know if you had any questions related to that. The city doesn't own the property. The city does not make money off selling the property. So I just wanted to make that clear. It's a private owner who would be rezoning and then potentially selling the property.
Thank you.
I think it's good to note for the public's benefit that the city's role, our planning and development department, is to review any application and see if it meets the city's laws, the land use code, and then make a recommendation if it meets it to you as a council to make your decision, which was done tonight with a recommendation that they can meet what is required to rezone this.
All right, thanks for that clarification. Are there any other comments or questions from council? All right, I'm not hearing any. Then do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to recommend approval of the zone request to zone the subject property to community residential zone with no conditions to the Fruita City Council.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we've got a first and a second. Any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none. Deb, would you please poll council?
Counselor Purser,
Yes.
Counselor Williams, Counselor Cry, Counselor Miller, Counselor Hansi.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right, well, thank you everyone for being here for that public hearing. With that, we're going to move into our administrative agenda. And so we've got a presentation of an overview of the Fruita Academy.
Right. Right. Good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. It's a pleasure to be here in front of you tonight, presenting on an overview of a new program that we're starting this year. Just for the record, CRD Pinto, Communications and Engagement Specialist. And so, hi. And as I was saying, it's a new program and it's going to fit into the city's larger communications strategy, which is really to connect and strengthen the relationship between the residents of Fruita and the city of Fruita by informing them, educating, and then also just connecting. And so this program, we're calling it the Fruita Academy, and it is going to be a 4-week in-person class where residents can sign up to participate. And really the goal of the program is to give residents the opportunity to develop develop an understanding of local government while also connecting with leadership here at the city face to face. And so like I was saying, 4 weeks in person, it's going to be held. The first one is going to be held every Thursday. We're going to start this in July. So July 13th through August 2nd. And it's going to be every Thursday, 3 to 5. And then we're going to have our leadership team specialists within each department giving presentations to the participants. And so we're going to have 2 presentations each session, and we're trying to keep it to no more than 20 minutes to the presentation and then allow enough time for Q&A and discussion on all the services that we provide at the city. Like I was saying, 2 presentations with Q&A. We're really trying to make it interactive. So participants will have the opportunity to go to 2 different tours, one of the wastewater treatment facility and then the Fruita Community Center. And then at the end of the program, all the participants will be recognized at an upcoming city council meeting. So you'll be able to meet them all and just recognize their commitment to getting a connection with the city more. And with that, so I'll give you a little rundown. It's in the packet, but I'll give you a rundown of each session. So the first one is on July 13th, and that's going to be covering elected officials and then administration. So more of the budget, the city's budget. And so I would like to invite any of you, if you would like to come to that first one on July 13th. It's not required, but to be there with Mike to just give an overview of what your role is here at the city. And then the next one will be Police and Parks and Recreation, Public Works and Engineering, Planning and Building Inspections, and then those 2 tours. And this is really, we've talked to other communities within the area. One is Mesa County. They have a inside Mesa County that's very similar to this. Theirs is longer because they have more going on in Mesa County, but we thought 4 weeks would be enough time to give someone a good overview of what we do here in local government. So if you have any questions.
I do.
Okay.
I love the idea. I think
Yeah.
it's so great. It's super exciting. I do have a concern of the time because I feel like that limits severely the demographic that can attend.
And I should have elaborated on that more. So the first one is going to be 3 to 5 is what we're proposing, but then each one after that will change. So maybe a lunch hour or 5:30 p.m. just to catch a bunch of different people that might want to participate. So the times will rotate
Great.
throughout. Yeah.
We have received feedback during the engagement series that like after work times don't work for a lot of people just as well. So that's kind of our each 4-week session will, as she said, we'll change and we'll try different times to accommodate different schedules. And so we will have one in the future that will be at night. We'll have one probably at like lunchtime or
Yeah.
So is the goal then to do this like on an annual basis? Because I know Mesa County does regular.
Yes. So annual starting off, we'll see how this one goes, how many people participate, and then maybe extend it to twice a year would be a good goal for us. But yeah, once a year starting out. And then, we're going to start promoting this probably in April to give people enough time. And we're going to have a short application just to get people's contact information. And that's basically the application to participate.
I'm assuming no cost.
No cost. Yes.
And is there a limited number of spaces or kind of keeping it open for now to?
Yeah, we don't.
Response there is?
I think we're going to open it for now. We don't have a limited number. We've heard the sweet spots around no more than 20 people, because after that, it's really hard to connect with people on that individual basis. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. Yeah. Any other questions?
This is very cool. I've done both the Grand Junction Chamber and the Mesa County one, and they're both excellent. So this is very exciting.
I think this one will be better. The way we do things here in Fruita, I think it's going to be way better. So.
I didn't think that needed to be said.
Oh, but
I just took that for granted. Can you send out an invite for July 13th?
Yes, I can.
So make sure that as many of us are there as possible.
Great.
I guess as council members, we're not allowed to participate.
You can. You could come to any of the sessions that interest you.
make sure you wear your name badge and everybody knows who you are.
Great.
All right. Any question or what else you want to
I
add?
have one more thing.
All right.
Sorry. If there's no more questions on this program, thought I'd give you a quick update on for the love of Fruita. So I've been waiting for the weather to get a little bit warmer, but I wanted the website, the landing page is done for it. And then I have the templates, the letter templates to give to all the co-creators that are participating right now. And so I will be sending out some email reminders to all the co-creators about the program and to, share their love letters. But yeah, I do have some for you tonight that I'll give you. Feel free to participate if you want, leave a love letter somewhere for someone else to find. But yeah, I'm hoping to catch all the boards and commissions in their upcoming meeting this next month. So.
Thank you. Yeah, come on up. You don't be shy.
Oh, I like that.
Well, while you're handing that out, thanks for setting up both these programs. I think they'll be very helpful to our community to
Very Fruita.
keep the great legacy of Fruita going.
That's really cool.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you.
All right, well, thank you for updating us. All right, with that, we're going to move into our city manager's report.
All right, thank you, Mayor, members of council. A few items to update you on. Today is exactly 2 weeks since we started the building department, the Fruita building department, and transitioned from contracting with Mesa County. So I wanted to give you a few stats in those first 2 weeks. Technically, the first day was February 20th, which was President's Day holiday. So that Tuesday to this Tuesday are the 2 weeks that we've been operating. We've received 94 applications in that 2-week period for permits. A third of those have already been paid out at $22,540. We have issued 36 permits. We've actually we've issued another 21 that we're waiting on the payment for. So there's a total of 54 that have finished our process. We received payment, and then we've fully issued those permits out of the 94. So they are staying busy. They're doing a great job. They've had quite a few accolades right off the bat because of the software, and the majority of people have not even had to come to the city to come in person. So they've been able to work through our cloud permit process, receive a digital permit, and then when we do our first inspection, we bring the physical permit to them so that it can save them a trip. There's been a lot of enthusiasm about the quick response and the customer service level so far, and also the fact that they don't have to go to 2 places in going through this process. So we're excited, and I'm really proud of the work that they're doing on our behalf.
Mike, have we had anything unexpected, or is it all pretty standard on what?
I don't think we've had anything unexpected that I've been told or that I know of, and we've been talking almost daily about it. So except for receiving, crumble cookies and things like that with thank you letters to the staff.
You weren't going to share those with us? Is that what you're saying?
I think there's some left over downstairs if you like. We have about a week left on the gym floor. I don't, Parks and Recreation, I'll let them put the announcement out, but sometime this week they'll announce likely a day next week when we open that back up. So we are finally to that point. If you've been by, or if you looked at even just the picture that was in the weekly update Friday, you can see that it's come a long ways. They're putting the final sealant coats on the floor, and then there's a few things to wrap up there, and then it'll be open. But they pulled off some of the taping, so it looks great. The new colors for the lines for the different sports really stand out a little bit better than the colors we used to have, and so we're excited about that. And then the dog park fencing should start this week, starting to be put in at Bark Park, and the only delay after the fencing is being put in is that the water fountain, there's a little bit of a delay on that we've been waiting on, but right now it's looking like the week of April 3rd that'll be installed, and that's a water fountain for the dogs to be able to use. That'll be in between the large dog area and the small dog area. So
are we planning like
pretty close
or something with that?
We are. We're trying to nail down when we know it's open. One consideration we have is it's likely that we can do a soft opening when the fencing's in and get that going even before the water fountain, and then do a more formal ribbon cutting, so that we don't really want to hold off just because there's not the water fountain. But yeah. So we will keep you posted on that, because we obviously want you involved in that, want to coordinate your schedules for that one. And then the last update I did have was I had sent a follow-up to all of you after the last council meeting about a proposed schedule for boards and commissions presentations, or the discussions that we will have. Some of those that require a presentation to this group in a regular council meeting first. I did not try and detail out when that follow-up workshop would be necessarily, but we have a few there. I know our staff liaisons at each of the meetings are starting to check if those work for the groups. So I had 2 questions. One, were there any concerns from any of you on the proposed schedule? And 2, I wanted to get some clarification from you as a council in regard to the Fruita Tourism Advisory Council, do we want the group to come and present? Do we want the contracted consultant to do any kind of presentation like we've done in the past of what the plan is? I just want to get clarification from that before. This is the first discussion, not the workshop discussion, but the presentation from that group to the council. So first, does the proposed schedule work, assuming that it works for those boards as we check with them at each of their meetings? And then two, for tourism, do we want just the board coming to present to council for that first presentation, or the board and Colvita, which is the contracted firm that the board gives direction to?
All right, first questions first. Is the schedule look good? All right, schedule's good.
Great.
All right, as far as tourism, I know, James, you're the liaison on that. So I guess what would be most productive, I
My
guess.
particular take on that is I would like to hear from the board itself, or from at least the chairperson, on their take on how things are going. That's where I'm at. I sense a lot of frustration, not only from myself, but there are other members that have voiced frustration as well. So I would like to hear from them before I hear from.
That'd be more valuable to me than the.
Yeah.
Start with that, and if we want, have.
Yeah,
consultant.
I would like to hear from the other people, even if it was just the chairperson, if the other ones couldn't come. But I have a feeling that my concern not being.
And I think from your point is that board is giving direction to Colvita. So really Colvita, it's more important to talk to the board. than really.
Because I don't want it to be my particular opinion, but I want to know what other people are sensing from it as well. So that would be my take, is that I would like to hear from them.
I'm good with that.
Whether it's just the chairperson, and that might be a reality that she might have to come, but if other members wanted to come, that'd be awesome.
Right.
I think all of these, we want to have as many from those boards come, because I think
Yeah.
that's who we're trying to get that direction from. So I realizing not everybody's probably going to make every meeting, but have it open to. So everybody's good with, I'm seeing head nods and. thumbs
Yeah.
up. Okay. Is that what you needed, Mike?
Great. Yes, thank you. That's all I have for tonight.
All right, with that, we're gonna move into our council reports and actions. Matthew made eye contact first. All right. All right. Amy,
I have
see, I'm
nothing
going,
to report. I was out of town.
Aaron,
I have two things. One, I missed the park board meeting, but I understand that they talked about our objectives of what I think Mark conveyed what we're doing with all the boards, and they're very happy that they're doing it. So it's great to hear that they're having support. The other thing, I was just thinking the other day, with all this wonderful 10 cents per grocery sack, that money that people have to pay. I wonder if we do, like, we're going to get a certain chunk of that money. I wonder if we look into taking that money directly, and tell me if I'm speaking out with how funds are already allocated in the budget, if or not, but directly taking those funds and using them in something that's more beneficial to the community in a recycling way. If it's just like with our cleanup, if we expand that, if we have the big idea that I was thinking about was we have the cleanup, and I just saw that we're having one in the spring, right?
Correct.
If there's like a recycling that we throw with it, or like if we have a place that people can drop off stuff to Fruita thrift store or something like that, to that nonprofit, just something to expand it to, like, okay, we're getting all these funds. It's not necessarily, I personally don't like the anti-plastic bag thing, because we use them and now they're being taken away from us, and we have to pay for them. But like, how can we take those funds and put them directly back into some great renewed or recycled things that we can do with those funds?
What if we've got bags and put Fruita logos on them? And reusable bags, and gave those out.
That's a cool idea to think about.
Yeah.
Right.
We could use those funds. Yeah. is
I,
there stipulation?
I believe there are limitations. I don't remember what those are off the top of my head. Shannon or Margaret may remember that, but, or we can bring it to you at the next, I'm just getting yeah, what Aaron's talking about is in line and great suggestion. I also know that when we were putting the budget together, knowing that we didn't have a real good basis on what the revenue would be. So there'll be a point where we are
An idea.
where we will have more, especially going into next year's budget, right? But prior to that, we may have some updates, but
She's getting ready. Margaret's getting ready.
Margaret, do you want, no, I was just gonna say, yeah, please.
She's walking slower because Mike's doing such a good job.
Like, have we had any, one of my questions, if you could answer, was how much have we received so far? I can't remember. Also, zero.
Correct. The law states that they don't have to begin remitting it to us until April of 2024. There's a belief that that was a typo in the original legislation, but that's what the legislation says. So our information that we send out to vendors is they certainly can voluntarily remit that to us prior to that date. And we've set up remittance forms on our website and things like that they can do that. However, we have not received anything to date.
So they owe us, legislation says they owe us for 23, but they just don't have to remit it till 24.
It's really kind of vague.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
So anyway, well, maybe when we start to receive funds, I think it'd be great if we can be like, hey, community.
Stand down the road. I love the idea of that.
Yeah. Thanks, Margaret. No,
April at 24, that sounds like a good date, doesn't it?
no, it'd be fun to just take those funds that we really we're definitely not asking or really wanting. It's
Right.
statutorily being given to us. Give back to the community for what they're being forced to pay.
Yeah, there are specific uses that it can be spent on, and I don't recall them exactly, but it's of an environmental nature, to encourage environmental practices. So I think your
Yeah.
grocery
Please take note for
bags with the
budget.
label on them, your recycling, your spring break are all good and permitted uses. And then effective January 1, no plastic bags are permitted whatsoever. So I don't know what that will do to the revenue that we actually receive in April of 2024.
That's based on size of business, because I think you have to have.
It is. So there's
locations or
very few
more.
businesses in Fruita that are subject to that fee.
Right.
It's mainly your chains. If you don't have 3 locations within the state of Colorado, if I recall correctly,
I think so.
then you don't have to collect that fee. I've noticed a number of them are. And so it'll be interesting to see how that works. But
they're allowed, they're allowed to continue to sell plastic bags from January 1, 2024 till June of
if it's
2024.
within their existing inventory,
Yes.
correct.
They
Correct.
can still sell them now.
Yeah.
After June 1st, 2024,
No more.
they have to throw them away.
Yeah.
Is that all size businesses do?
They are, if I recall it's prohibited, no plastic bags after
I thought it was June.
January 1, except for existing inventory that you have until June 1 for any.
No, there are exceptions for produce.
Yeah,
I'm going
grocery
from
bag,
memory.
garment
I don't
bags.
remember if dry cleaning bags are part of that.
Yes, they're exempt.
But if you buy flowers, those are exempt. So there are a number of exemptions.
Yeah.
I have a whole closet full of just boxes and boxes of plastic bags for my business.
I don't know what about this makes you think that I'm looking for them.
I'll take them. I'll take them. I collect.
Mary Elizabeth.
Anyway,
Thank
thank you. That's all I have, Mayor.
All right, thank you, Aaron. So I think those are some good points that we can look forward to.
Yeah, we can look forward to.
Yeah, but we look forward to April of 24 is what I'm hearing in my head. So, all right, with that, who's gonna look at me next? Janine, all right.
All of my meetings are upcoming, but just a reminder that Coco Vino is this Friday. Tickets are very limited. If you have not gotten yours and you still want to come, go online, 970tix.com.
The sign up front said they were sold out.
Oh, are they sold out now?
Yeah,
I drove
I
up,
was-
sold out.
I was procrastinating in my ordering and I saw that they're sold out. Yeah.
All right.
I have not gone online, but I saw signs with.
Nancy Patterson told me today that they are sold out.
There you go. So I believe that was set at 130 tickets. So
Sweet.
that's it.
It's great.
That's yeah. And I have nothing else to read.
All right, thank you. Ken?
Grand Valley Transit met. I didn't go. Kimberly went. They did an amendment to the Transportation Impact Plan. Is that what it's called? Yeah, program. Transportation Improvement Program, which sets the agenda for what projects that the county wants to focus on. We supported CDOT in a grant application for Glenwood Canyon improvements, and the Grand Valley Transit went back to mostly full day schedules on Saturday, a couple hours. They shut down early. And yeah, what was that? Gist of that meeting.
All right,
That's it.
thank you. James?
I had kind of a throw together AGNC Zoom meeting today. They're very concerned about the 5 firearm bills that are. I guess they had one vote on one yesterday, or talk about one yesterday, and then there's the other 3 are happening tomorrow. And they're very strongly opposed to all of them, and they've had several reasons why, and kind of just wanted to gauge what everybody's take was on that, and if they wanted to take a stand as a united front against that. And so they gave links if you want to testify during the hearings tomorrow and things like that. But anyway, that's kind of what they're all up into right now. Other than that, I had the tourism thing and kind of talked about that before, where we're at on that, but other than that, nothing.
All right, all right, it's back to the AGNC. So if anybody wants to speak on that, we'd have to have agreement from council to be speaking from council.
I have not read the actual bill language, so I'd be uncomfortable.
I have the links to all of it if anybody wants it. And then that you can, if you want to address the house tomorrow when they're talking about it, there's a link to sign up and things like that. So if anybody wants to do that, I have all the information. I didn't type in, I didn't say anything. I just sat back and watched.
If you could forward that to me would be great.
Yeah.
I have not read the bill language, so I'm a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, I had neither, so I didn't really get
I
involved.
think if anybody'd want to comment, they'd have to comment as an individual instead of
Yeah.
as a council member. Okay,
Mhm.
welcome. So,
And James, can you forward that?
And that's what, yeah, and I will, and that's kind of what I was thinking is that, you know, that there probably would be different opinion. They were all very 100% united across the board.
The loud ones in that group are.
Yeah, well, and
And wolves and guns and wolves and guns.
I mean, I
It's about
will say
broadband
they
and things
did,
improve,
they
but-
did on several times. Is anybody opposed? Is anybody, and there was 22 of us on the thing and no one jumped in, but there was some wording and some of the things that what they said, it was kind of like, oh, that kind of really does affect us. It had something to do with like 18 to 20-year-olds not being able to have rifles or something of specific ones on property, which again, I don't know enough about it, but they've seemed very concerned about that particular wording, and the particular one bill really stood out as really bad. So if anybody's interested, like I say, I have the stuff and they can.
so I'd say just forward it out to all the council.
Okay.
All right, thank you. I haven't had any meetings. I just had I had a question, and then now James with his gun thing derailed me for what I was gonna ask Mike. It was about the progress of something, and now I'm trying to remember what it's. Not the bridge,
Band?
yeah, broadband. There you got it. Thank you. See, the meeting's this Thursday.
It is.
Okay,
Yes.
all right, that's all I want to
CDOT.
double check on that. So then we'll know. So that after that, I don't know if you're gonna send out an email to us to let us
Yeah,
all
we'll
know
get-
kind of.
I'll send an email update on however that meeting, whatever the outcome is, even if there isn't an outcome, but.
Okay, all right. No, that sounds good. Well, because we're gonna have an outcome based on that, depending on if we want to sign a letter or not. So I think that's. Unless they say, yep, we're gonna go ahead and allow it, then we don't need to worry about a letter. So, okay, thank you, Mike. Thank you, Matthew, for reminding me. All right, that's all I've got. So with that, we've got move into executive sessions. We've got 2 executive sessions on our schedule here. So we need to make a motion to go into executive session. How does that work when we've got 2 of them? How do we normally, because normally we do a motion to go into executive session, close the regular meeting.
Right. So, and because the attendance at these 2 is going to be different, make a motion under the first one, under A. We'll go into executive session. We'll come back out briefly. You'll make the motion to go to the second one because then Dan and Mike can take off. So.
Okay, all right. All right, with that, we need a motion to move into executive session, subject to negotiation. So who wants to make that?
So moved.
Well, no, you got to read the thing. We got sitting here. You can't do that. Come on. He's got it right there.
Mr. Mayor,
For executive sessions, you do actually have to read the entire statute.
Yeah,
I move,
I won't let you get away with that one.
Good job.
I move we go,
Amy.
I move we go into executive session for determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations and instructing negotiators pursuant to Colorado Revised Statutes, section 24-6-402 4E. With regard to a proposal for the city's lagoons property redevelopment and the city's use and development of property, it may purchase and receive legal advice from the city attorney pursuant to Colorado Revised Statutes, section 24-6-402 4B regarding the same.
Second.
All right, we got a first and a second. Any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none. Debbie, do you please poll council?
Counselor Williams?
Yes.
Counselor Cry?
Aye.
Counselor Miller?
Yes.
Counselor Hansi?
Yes.
Counselor Bremen?
Yes.
Counselor Purser?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
All right. We need a quick break.